Hi everyone, this is Jonathan Benz. I want to talk to you for a few minutes today about how to think strategically. This comes from chapter 11 in Live a Legacy, which is available to you through Balboa Press. You can also get it through Amazon.com, Amazon.co.uk, BarnesandNoble.com, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, I want to talk to you today about strategic thinking from chapter 11. And strategic thinking people, or people who think strategically, keep view of their larger context which they are in. They understand there's a bigger story going on, and they are a player in the story, and they know how to maneuver within the story. Strategic people know how to keep their primary purpose first and still work within that larger context to navigate and to maneuver around the obstacles, even if those obstacles might be the irregular people. And in this chapter, I actually talk about, or I reference the irregular people, and came upon that phrase several years back because it just seemed like a more thoughtful way of viewing people that we could just want to call the real problem makers or whatever, just the thorn in the flesh or the thorn in the side or whatever they are. However we like to categorize people who give us trouble. People who think strategically understand that, some folks are there and they're dealing with another host of issues or whatever it might be, and they know how to work around them and maneuver around them. And strategic thinking people don't get bogged down in the minutia of the moment. They don't get mired down, I say in this chapter. They know how to rise up above it, keep first things first. So I think there's an ability here of if you want to engage your workplace or your family or whatever it is, your project, from a strategic vantage point. I like to think about, going up, like when you're in a plane and when I used to fly into the UK all the time, I would love when we would get over the British Isles, because you would look down and you would see all of the quadrants of land as you're approaching London. And it was just this real picture of the rolling hills in the south of England, and then how there were these quadrants, and some of them were rectangle, some of them were maybe more, octagonal in shape, or squares. They were just all these different kinds of, weird plots of land that had been there for centuries. And I think that that's how we see things sometimes. We need to rise up above it like we're in a plane, look down, and recognize that, from the ground, my vantage point might not be clear. I might not be able to see over the next hill. I might not be able to see over that stone wall or to see the brook or the stream that lies on the other side. But when I get up above my situation and I look down, I have much clearer vision and sight. And so when you get to that vantage point, you can maneuver. And maneuvering just means that you know how to make decisions as you go through. Go to the left, go to the right, do this, hold. You're really in touch with your inner spirit, and you're listening to that, your conscience, or that still small voice within that's telling you which way you should go. There's also a line in here that I talk about. Strategic people know the unwritten rules of the workplace or the family system, and they know how to engage, because oftentimes there are rules that govern our lives that are not explicit. They're implied. And people who think strategically know what the expectations are of the people that they are engaging, and they know tactically how to engage and how to move. Smart tactics are just how you maneuver to get to where you need to be. It's sort of like a subcomponent of moving strategically. You then move tactically. And so sometimes I think of the tactics are just how I'm going to get from A to B, B to C, and get to where I need to be within this larger context. Tactical thinking takes into account the unwritten rules, the rules that everyone knows to follow, but they are not necessarily spelled out with clarity. And I think that sometimes, like successful people, they understand those subtle rules, and they know that they're not real clear, but they see them clearly, and they know that all those unwritten rules are being followed by everyone around, and they know how to work within those rules. Maybe even sometimes they know how to break those rules to get to where they need to be. And so they know which rules you can afford to break and which ones you can't to accomplish the goal at the end of the day. I want to encourage you today to think about, how are you thinking? How are you thinking about your life? How are you thinking about your workplace? How are you thinking about your family system, your relationship with your significant other? whatever the context of your life is right now, think about it. What strategies and tactics are you employing to achieve your goal? Are you thinking strategically? Have you stepped out? Sometimes it helps me just to sort of visually, I close my eyes and I sort of like in my mind, I step out of my body and I look down and I go, okay, think about this situation. Are you seeing all of the elements? And it's crazy that when you stop and meditate and still the noise of the mind or the noise of the soul, oftentimes you see things, you see players, you see people, you see obstacles, whatever it is, you see things that need to be overcome or keys to breakthrough. Just because you stilled yourself, you sort of, I close my eyes, I step out, I look down, and then I begin to see that map of the English countryside of my life or whatever it might be. So try that. That might work for you. It might be a good tool to help you see your life with a little more clarity. And then once you see that, then just make a list of the tactical steps you're going to take to achieve your overall strategy for breaking through. Magical thinking doesn't work. I wish that we could just, pray, and I do pray, but, I just wish that I could just pray and like God was like this big, slot machine in the sky that like, I pray and then, I hit the jackpot, or I just put in my request and I get what I need. My grandpa used to say, you got to put legs to your prayers. Grandpa Benz used to say, you got to pray and then you go do it. And I think living strategically, thinking strategically, and then walking it out in a tactical way is just maybe a little more fancy way of saying, put legs to your prayers today. Whatever you want, dream it, see if you can attain it, go for it, but push yourself and then go and do it. It is possible. Feel free to contact me, email me. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening.